For years, he moved like a shadow across the Backlands of Maranhão. He left no trace, had no social networks, never used a cell phone. He was the kind of man who could kill wearing flip-flops, vanish into the brush, and no one dared to speak his name. Robson Almeida became known as the backpack hitman. He executed with surgical precision, at the service of politicians, land grabbers, and powerful figures who preferred to settle matters far from the courts. But like every seasoned killer, trained in silence and fueled by fear, his end came not in the shadows but under the glaring sun, collapsing on a sidewalk among ordinary people, 3 bullets to the chest and a still-hot gun in his hand. This real investigation retraces how Robson rose, dominated, and ultimately fell. It is a story woven with gunpowder, paranoia, and power, because in Maranhão, the most dangerous man does not always survive until the end. His name was Robson dos Reis Almeida. He was born in the village of Lagoa do Mato, a dry zone in Alto Alegre do Maranhão, 1991. The son of a farm worker and grandson of a failed gold prospector, he grew up surrounded by broken fences, heavy dust, and a silence only interrupted by the bleating of goats and the cough of an alcoholic father. He lost his mother young, to a fever left untreated. She died without a proper funeral. She was a quiet, suffering woman, spending her days with her feet in the water, beating clothes against stones. When she passed, Robson was 8 years old and already carried firewood on his back like a grown man. At the age of 10, he had learned that shouting solved nothing. What solved problems was a blade. He slashed the arm of an older cousin with a sharpened spoon because the boy tried to take his bread. Robson did not cry, did not run. He simply stood there, watching the blood drip onto the hard soil. "This boy has no soul," his aunt said, after staring into those eyes that held no tears, no tremor. By age 11, Robson had left school for good. He used to say that letters didn't fill your belly. He went to work for a man named Antonor, a rancher known for solving things in the dark. The job was rough, clearing brush, burning crops, marking other people's land with fire. Sometimes the work included making a neighbor's animal disappear. It was during this kind of task that Robson developed a taste for firearms. By 14, he already knew how to dismantle an old soca shotgun, clean it, cock it, and shoot from atop a moving donkey. It was Antonor's brother, a former military police corporal, who taught him. He used to say Robson had an animal's aim. He never missed, not even at night. The first body appeared at the end of 2007. A man called Seu Joaquim, a groundskeeper who had threatened to report an illegal land subdivision. He was taken from his shack with a rope around his neck and found 3 days later with his face buried in a hole and a wooden stake through his chest. The police were called. No one knew anything. Neighbors said Robson was milking cows that morning. Months later, another man died, Zé Inácio, Antonor's brother-in-law. He was found in his car with a single clean shot in the forehead. The car had been dumped in a gully. No signs of a struggle, no footprints, no shell casings, nothing. Again, Robson had an alibi. He was out fishing. People said rumors claimed he was paid $800 for the job, in cash and in silence. By the age of 17, he was no longer seen as just a boy. He was called Robson da Encomenda, Robson of the assignment. He would appear and disappear like the wind. He never carried a gun for no reason. He knew the weight each step could carry. He slept in hammocks tied to trees. He traveled paths only he knew. His name exploded after the case of the Sales family. A husband, wife, and teenage daughter were found dead, kneeling, mouths taped shut. 2 bullets each, one to the head, one to the chest. Nothing was stolen. It was a cold execution, clean and precise. That same night, Robson was seen at a roadside bar, eating farofa and drinking cashew juice like he had just taken a bath. "There's blood in that one's eyes." "But it doesn't drip," said the bar owner. He didn't use a cell phone, changed SIM cards weekly, wore old clothes but never the same shirt for more than 2 days. He had 2 backpacks, one with ammo, the other with rice, dry crackers, and fake documents. By the age of 21, Robson had killed in 5 towns: Caxias, Pacabao, Codo, Vargem Grande, and São Mateus. In every case, no one was arrested. He never left a mark. He shot and vanished, He had one rule. He only killed if he believed the person deserved to die. It was a twisted form of ethics, born in a place where justice never arrived. Before accepting a job, Robson asked questions. He wanted to know what the target had done. Was he a rapist, a traitor, a land thief? If the story was filthy enough, he agreed. If it sounded petty, he declined. But with time, his moral yardstick began to soften. Money weighed more than justice, and death, once a source of chills, became routine. By 2015, rumors said he had executed a city councilman from the countryside, hired by a rival group. He got the man at the exit of a political rally. 2 shots, one to the chest, the other to the neck. Witnesses saw him leaving the scene on a black motorcycle with the headlights off. No one investigated. The authorities knew, but they looked the other way. Robson was too useful to be hunted. He was the kind of piece no one wanted to lose, or even touch. He lived in improvised shacks, slept in houses loaned by gunmen, politicians, and land thieves. He never stayed more than 5 days in one place. He didn't make friends, only temporary alliances. Those who got too close tended to vanish later. He was no longer just a hired gun. He was a reference, a benchmark among hitmen in the Backlands. He charged anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 per job, depending on the urgency and importance of the target, and he never missed. By early 2016, Robson's name was no longer confined to his home village. It had become a whispered code, spoken between clenched teeth in alleyways, behind closed doors, and in hushed promises. If nothing works, call the one with the backpack, they'd say. And the one with the backpack was Robson Almeida. By then, he no longer rode old motorcycles. He had acquired a black BRS 150 with no license plate, which he changed every 2 months. He bought them from third parties who didn't ask questions. Fake documents came included. The money was delivered in parts, half before, half after. One of the turning points in his career was the contract on Valdecir Freire, an influential merchant from São Mateus do Maranhão. Freire had been accused of extorting small market vendors and embezzling school meal funds. He also reportedly threatened to expose 2 city councilmen tied to organized crime. That sealed his fate. Valdecir Freire's body was found in the back seat of an abandoned car in an empty lot. 2 shots, one to the chin, one to the chest. No blood at the scene. Someone had cleaned the car. Forensics said the execution had happened elsewhere. The police found no shell casings, no fingerprints, no footprints, just a bitten bread bag left in the glove compartment. This was done by someone who knows what they're doing, said an investigator before shelving the case due to lack of evidence. That same day, Robson was seen at a snack bar on the edge of town, eating couscous and eggs. He paid in small bills and left without saying a word. The security camera only captured the side of his cap. His fame didn't grow because of body count, but because of surgical precision. He never missed a shot, never left a survivor, and above all, never made a mess. Each killing was marked by silence, tension and a kind of invisible signature. Clean shots, no traces and no obvious motive. It was as if the victims had simply stopped living, as if someone had pressed a switch. That same year, Robson was linked to the execution of a radio journalist in Coroata. The man had exposed fraud in public bidding and had openly named businessmen allegedly tied to contract killings. 1 week later, he was shot in the chest while opening his front gate. It was nighttime, no rain. The neighborhood was silent. The only witness was a neighbor. She said she saw a slim man with a backpack calmly crossing the street after the shot. He looked like he was heading to school, she said. He wasn't even in a hurry. Robson started avoiding large cities. He preferred operating in smaller towns where the noise of crime was drowned by fear. He was always on the move. He never slept in the same place twice and never used the same escape route. He didn't talk on the phone. When he needed to receive instructions, he used notes, messages passed through trusted people, or intermediaries who didn't even know his real name. Before each hit, he observed the target for at least 2 days, noted their routine, studied escape routes, and chose the best moment to kill without confrontation. He was technical, surgical, methodical, and ruthless. One of the most brutal cases happened in Bom Lugar, where a rancher named Helder Moraes hired Robson to execute a former employee who had reported a series of land invasions. The man, named Darley, was ambushed while leaving church, with his wife and 2 children. The woman said Robson waited until the kids were safely inside the car. Then and only then he walked up and shot Darley twice in the chest. She screamed. The kids cried. Robson simply turned his back. He didn't run. He didn't look back. He just walked in a straight line until he disappeared around the corner, said a local man who saw everything from his window. The church's security camera wasn't working that day. Coincidence? Sabotage? No one could say. With time, Robson became more selective. He refused jobs with romantic motives, said that woman drama and jealousy weren't reasons for killing. That's soap opera, not death. But he continued accepting jobs driven by revenge, land disputes, or political threats. His employers paid high sums and knew he followed the plan to the letter. His support network included land grabbers, politicians' bodyguards, ex-military men, and arms traffickers. In every city he passed through, there was someone who owed him a favor. And where there are favors, there is silence. Yet not everything was just about professionalism. The past was beginning to take a toll. Between one killing and another, Robson maintained contact with one person outside the criminal world, a woman named Vanessa, with whom he exchanged handwritten notes. She lived in Bacabal, worked at a public health clinic, and had met Robson before he became what he became. According to her, the letters never spoke of death. They spoke of fear. He would ask if I thought someone like him could stop, if it was possible to come back after so much blood, she recalled. I never knew how to answer. One of his notes read, "Sometimes the weight comes in silence. It's not the shot that hurts, it's the afterward." By 2020, the landscape began to shift. A new group of hitmen appeared, operating in eastern Maranhão, and rumors spread that they were stealing Robson's contracts. Competition brought tension. One of the rivals even tried to kill him on a dirt road between Peritoro and Lima Campos. 2 shots were fired. Robson escaped by a hair, but he marked the name. A month later, that shooter's body was found inside a drum sunk in a dry reservoir. His hands were tied with antenna wire, and his face was covered with a rag soaked in diesel. Forensics said the man died of suffocation. Robson's name was never officially mentioned, but the police knew. The one who disappears. And nobody says his name. That's the most dangerous of all, said a retired sergeant from Bacabal who had investigated 6 deaths with the same invisible signature. Robson had now become a living legend. But the bigger the name, the bigger the target on his back. By 2022, his name was no longer whispered, it was feared. He wasn't just a hitman anymore. Robson had become an instrument of dirty cleanup, used by people who no longer trusted money alone to solve their problems. But with fame came exposure. Robson began appearing too often in the shadows behind the powerful. That was when journalist Erico Mesquita, from the town of Tuntum, published a series of reports exposing land theft and political corruption in the Medio Mayarim region. He named names, dates, and places, including that of a state deputy allegedly involved with contract killers. Erico died on a stifling Thursday night. He was shot inside his car, parked in front of his sister's house. 1 bullet to the ear, 1 to the shoulder. Shards of glass were scattered across the pavement. His phone disappeared. The police found it strange. The security camera on the street had been covered with black electrical tape the day before. Whoever did this knows the ground they walk on, said the lead investigator, and knows exactly when to retreat. That same week, Robson was seen at a bakery 11 kilometers from the scene. He bought bread, sardines, and a soft drink. He paid in small notes. The cashier remembered him because he had asked if the road to Capinzal was still dirt or had finally been paved. It was him, she said. I've never seen someone look at you that coldly. After that killing, the civil police created a secret internal list of 6 active contract killers operating in Maranhão. Robson was at the top. There was no warrant, no formal investigation, but there was a silent order. If you find him, arrest or neutralize, Robson found out. A contact from the military police in Bacabal sent him the warning in a handwritten note. Your face is in hands that don't smile. If you're smart, dig your burrow deeper. He did dig, but not deep enough. From then on, he began to doubt everyone. He severed ties with an intermediary he had worked with for years. Changed hiding places every 2 days. Stopped using motorcycles and began traveling on foot through hunting trails. When he slept with his finger on the trigger. Any crack of a twig was a threat. The only person he still contacted was Vanessa, the woman of the letters. But even he began to push away. Messages became rare, once a month at most, and always through third parties. He was disappearing from everyone, even from himself, she would say later. During this period, Robson refused a contract for the first time in years. A mayor wanted to eliminate a former ally who threatened to expose a fraud scheme. The payout was high, but the target's name was too public. Robson said, "Too much noise." 3 weeks later, the mayor was killed by a less experienced hitman who left behind his phone, shell casings, and was arrested in 2 days. In custody, he told the police Robson had been the first choice. That was the last straw. After that, Robson cut off all contact with fixed employers. He began operating alone, off the radar. He lived hidden in abandoned cattle barns, forgotten flour mills, and old rural ranches. He walked with 2 guns at all times and slept in the same clothes he wore during the day. One of the last confirmed sightings of him was in April 2023, in a rural area near Peritoro. A local groundskeeper said he saw a thin, tired-looking man with a shotgun on his back, drawing water from a well. He looked at me, and I just knew not to ask anything, the man said. That same month, Robson executed a former partner, an ex-military man who had tried to betray him in exchange for police protection. The body was found on a muddy trail, 2 shots to the chest, hands tied. There were no signs of a struggle. It looked like the man knew what was coming. After that, Robson vanished completely. His mind began to falter. He would write names on scraps of cloth. He muttered phrases to himself at night as if talking to ghosts. Silence became his only companion. Noise, the enemy. The sound of a distant motorcycle would make him shoot into the dark. He had nightmares, fevers, and fear. In one of the final letters sent to Vanessa, he wrote, "If I fall, I don't want a mass, don't want a pretty coffin. Just don't lie about what I was. I was what they told me to be." And then came the final turn. By May 2025, a new name had entered his path. Alailton Muzinho Cordero, a bold, well-known gypsy. Himself rumored to be a killer. Robson was reportedly hired to eliminate Alailton, who was involved in a dispute within his own community, an internal power struggle. It was a vendetta. The meeting was set to take place near the Alto Alegre do Maranhão bus terminal. Robson arrived alone, in disguise, gun at his waist, eyes sharp. But what he didn't know was that the target also knew and wasn't alone. It was early May 2025 when Robson accepted what would become his final contract. The task was straightforward, but dangerous. Eliminate Alailton Muzinho Cordero, a man tied to the gypsy community, known for being involved in violent power disputes and shady business inside his own clan. According to police sources, Alailton had become too much of a problem, challenging leaders, threatening illegal deals, and entering disputes over territory. He had to be silenced before he spoke too much, or acted on his own. The payment was high, but this time it wasn't just about money. It was a matter of prestige, a final job to close Robson's name with a signature of blood. He didn't hesitate. In the days leading up to the hit, Robson was seen wandering the outskirts of Alto Alegre do Maranhão, wearing a dark cap and a thick jacket despite the heat. He carried a small backpack and avoided contact with any locals. He slept near roads or in abandoned warehouses, waiting for the right moment. Alailton, on the other hand, was already alert and wasn't alone. On the afternoon of Friday, May 10th, 2025, Robson approached the bus terminal around 2:40 p.m. The area was crowded, street vendors, passengers' cars in double-parked lines. He watched from afar, hiding behind a closed snack stand. The plan was simple. Get close to Alailton, shoot twice and disappear. But nothing went as planned. Alailton was already there, standing next to a black vehicle, chatting with a man. What Robson didn't know was that this wasn't a casual companion. It was an armed bodyguard, fully loaded. Robson stepped onto the street with cautious movements, his right hand hidden beneath his shirt. The revolver was cocked and ready, loaded with 2 specially chosen bullets. When he was within 5 meters of his target, he raised his arm to fire. That's when everything fell apart. Before Robson could pull the trigger, Alelton's companion reacted, pulled out a 9mm pistol, and fired 4 shots. 3 bullets hit Robson in the abdomen and chest. One grazed his leg. Even wounded, Robson managed to fire once, but the shot missed. He stumbled backward and collapsed onto the sidewalk, the gun slipping from his hand, spinning across the pavement like a top. He tried to escape. He crawled toward a nearby motorcycle that had been left with the key in the ignition, managed to climb onto it, but he was bleeding too heavily. Onlookers screamed. Chaos broke out. A military police officer nearby, and alerted by the shots, approached with weapon drawn and found the 2 men, Alelton and the bodyguard, still armed. The officer acted fast. He ordered them to surrender. Alelton dropped his weapon immediately. The bodyguard hesitated but eventually gave in. They were immobilized on the spot, lying on the ground between shopping bags and trash. Security cameras captured the whole scene. Residents recorded it on their phones. Soon the image of Robson lying on the pavement, shirt open, face turned to the side, eyes staring into nothing, was all over local WhatsApp groups. They killed the backpack hitman. That was the caption on one of the photos. Forensics arrived less than an hour later. With Robson, they found 2 guns, a .40 caliber pistol and a .38 revolver, both loaded. In the backpack, there was only a bottle of water, a broken cracker, a crumpled note. The note read, "If this is my last one, let it be clean." Robson's death caught even the police by surprise. Though they'd been watching him for years, no one expected him to die like so many of his targets. Quickly, publicly, body laid out on hot pavement. Alelton and the bodyguard were immediately arrested. With them, the police seized 3 loaded pistols, cell phones, and cash. During their initial statements, both remained silent. They claimed only that they had reacted to an attempted murder. In the days that followed, the town of Alto Alegre buzzed with rumors. Some said Robson was betrayed by whoever had hired him. Others claimed he wasn't the same anymore, that his aim trembled, that his blood wasn't cold like before, but his death was just another number in the records. That same month, Alto Alegre registered 5 homicides, all linked to family feuds and local gang disputes. Fear spread across the city. The mayor's office promised to reinforce the municipal guard. The military police increased patrols, but no one dared to speak Robson's name aloud. Even in death, he imposed silence. "It's like the land is finally breathing, but still holding its breath," said a civil police officer who was present that day. Robson's body was taken to the local hospital. No family members came forward. No funeral was held. It's assumed he was buried in a simple grave. No headstone. At the station, an officer held Robson's revolver with gloved hands, staring at the barrel like it was some kind of relic. "How many went down with this one?" he murmured. Robson Almeida's body was removed under the midday sun, wrapped in a black bag, placed in the back of a funeral truck, covered in dust and silence. There were no relatives, no tears. Just a trail of curious bystanders watching from a distance, as if seeing his death up close might somehow infect them. The news spread quickly. Backpack hitman killed in failed execution attempt in Alto Alegre do Maranhão. In under an hour, it was already in local blogs, WhatsApp groups, and crime shows. The headline was blunt: "Hitman gunned down in shootout with gypsy rivals." The hospital report listed multiple ballistic trauma, no vital signs on arrival. No official documents were submitted by family. The body was released by court order and buried hastily in an unmarked grave at the city cemetery. He died like he lived, alone, quietly, with the gun still in his hand, said the funeral worker who carried the cheap casket. But Robson's death didn't close the story. On the contrary, it raised more questions than answers. 2 days after the burial, a woman from the town of Pio do Ithine claimed she saw a man identical to Robson buying tobacco at a small store. She said he limped on his right leg, wore a cap, and kept his face partially covered with a dark cloth. It was him. Same eyes, Once you've seen them, you don't forget, she said. The police denied the claim. They insisted the body had been identified, photographed, and examined. But the rumors didn't stop. Some believed the death had been faked to help Robson escape a larger ambush, that he had been warned about the setup and sent a double in his place. Others swore the body found at the bus terminal had a different tattoo, and that the autopsy was done hastily, without formal ID confirmation. A stronger rumor circulated that Robson had fled to the interior of Pará, protected by powerful people, living under a new name with a surgically altered face, his life now dependent on silence and armed protection. A man like that doesn't die easy. He turns into smoke, said an old ex-soldier from Lago Verde. Meanwhile, the 2 gypsies involved in the shootout were held for 12 days. After that, they were released, responding to charges under self-defense claims. The investigation stalled. Robson's gun was archived as closed evidence. His .40 pistol was sent to the Bacabal Police Evidence Depot. The lead detective refused to comment. A retired sergeant summed it up. "It's over, maybe, but if one day the phone rings and it's him, I won't be surprised." Vanessa, the woman from the letters, heard of Robson's death through a note left in her mailbox. A brown envelope with a letter, no signature. The handwriting was his. It said, "If you're reading this, it means it didn't work. I couldn't leave. Couldn't escape. But at least I tried. Forgive me. And don't remember me as the killer. Remember me as the one who had no choice." She didn't give the letter to the police. She burned it in her bathroom sink and flushed the ashes down the drain. "It's better this way," she said. Days later, life in Alto Alegre returned to normal. But something had changed. The alleys felt emptier, the stairs more cautious. Robson's name was no longer spoken, not out of respect, but out of survival instinct. Because deep down, everyone knew. Even if his body was underground, his hands still hovered in the air. Months passed. But then 2 murders occurred, both with Robson's signature, clean shots. No signs of struggle, no evidence left behind. In both cases, the victims were former clients of contract killers. At one of the crime scenes, police found a piece of red cloth tied to a tree branch. It was a small detail, easy to miss. But those who had investigated Robson before knew that was his marker. The civil police officially denied any connection. They claimed it was coincidental and that the case was closed. But among the older investigators, the ones who had seen his work firsthand, there was another kind of whisper. If it was him, he came back to finish what was left unfinished. Robson Almeida's name was never part of official court records. He was never tried, never formally charged. He had been a ghost within the system, a man who operated where justice couldn't reach, and vanished before the state could even react. He killed like someone striking a match, fast, hot and irreversible, and even now, dead or not, his name still came up in political disputes, guard conversations and closed-door meetings between ranchers. It was never shouted, only whispered as a warning. If you keep pushing, they'll send someone worse than him, and nobody wants that. Robson Almeida became a legend, but unlike most legends, his was born not of myth but of real bullets. Robson Almeida was not a product of evil alone. He was a product of a place where justice never came. In the dry and forgotten zones of Maranhão, where dusty roads stretch farther than law enforcement. Robson was both symptom and solution, both threat and tool. He didn't rise by accident. He was made, forged in silence, sharpened by poverty, used by power. Politicians, landowners, criminals in high office, they all benefited from his precision. He became what they needed, a ghost with a gun. And in a world where the courts fail and the people fear, a ghost with a gun is more powerful than a badge. He didn't leave manifestos. He didn't seek followers. He didn't justify his actions with causes or slogans. He just did the job, cold, efficient, and quiet. And yet, beneath all the silence, there was still a trace of human fracture. The woman from Bacabal, Vanessa, kept the letters, the memories, and the ache of someone who saw a man disappear inside himself. He once wrote, "It's not the death that hurts. It's waking up the next day and remembering it didn't matter. In the end, It wasn't a rival gang or a bounty hunter or even the police that ended Robson Almeida. It was a mistake, a miscalculation, a bullet from someone faster on the draw. And even then, people aren't sure it was really him. Maybe that's the final irony, that a man who lived in whispers would die in confusion and live on in the doubt he left behind. Robson didn't want a legacy, but he left one anyway. In every frightened stare, in every unspoken name, in every red cloth tied to a branch, he is still out there, maybe buried, maybe watching, maybe waiting, because in the Northeast people say, the dead don't scare us. It's the ones we're not sure are dead yet